tonight's meeting. Today is Tuesday, March the 3rd, time is now 6 p.m. Year 2020. The regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Trinidad will now come to order. First, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Goodall.
Here.
Grego. Matei.
Here.
Ogletree. Here. Shu.
Here.
Williamson.
Here.
Rico.
Here. Item 2, approval of the agenda. Have any changes to the agenda? Can I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Goodall.
Yes.
Grego.
Yes.
Matei.
Yes.
Ogletree. Yes. Shu.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 3, policy item and staff reports. I understand that, Mr. Beach, you have something that you want to report on?
Mayor, members of council, remember, if you would, last November, 26th actually, I came before you to get your permission to apply for a grant to do some remediation at one of our dams that we have for the flood control dam up off of Sandy Trail. Excuse me. And last Friday, I was told that we got that grant.
Cool.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was,
Good job, sir.
it was just phone calls. So I won't take any credit. But just to remind you, it is for planning and design, the grant was, and any money that's left over will go towards construction. We're on the hook for 35% of the construction cost only, none for planning or design. We have monies in the budget and the capital for stormwater improvement each year. So it could fall into that. And I've been told by the gentlemen who are working on it that most likely there'll be sufficient funds left from the 470,000 to probably complete most, if not all, the work. So, cool. We'll see what happens. I just wanted to actually know that. We'll be working on it quickly.
Good job.
Good job.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Petitions or communications are overridden. Pat Howlett,
Yes.
state your name, you have 5 minutes, please.
More than enough time. Pat Howlett, voter, resident of Trinidad the last 3 years. I'd like to talk affordable housing options. Most stable communities have housing of different prices, types, sizes, a mix of rental and for sale. Gentrification affects neighborhoods, some positive and some negative. It occurs when communities experience new investment and an influx of higher income residents and investors. That's happening in Trinidad. Involuntary displacement is different and occurs when residents or businesses can no longer afford to stay in an area due to increasing property values and rents. Also happening in Trinidad and growing with no end in sight. It's a negative impact of gentrification that the City Council has the power to take action to mitigate. Our housing market is forcing Trinidad families out of homes and neighborhoods they helped create. Trinidad families are now forced to double or triple up in current homes. This is not couch surfing. This is multiple families living in structures that were intended for single families. I'd like to plant the seed with the housing option accessory dwelling units with the board tonight. Known as granny flats, mother-in-law, or above garage apartments. These dwellings had a significant role in the development of post-World War II Colorado. From the 20s to the 40s, these housing solutions sprouted along alleys and backyards. Many as soldiers returning from World War II sought solutions to the then local housing shortage. They created a housing boom. This is not new. Colorado communities have done this before and are doing it now successfully, and we can do this in Trinidad. Done right, this housing type can create affordable rental housing and at the same time give current Trinidad homeowners a way to build wealth. Many Trinidad's households with low or fixed income can see on the horizon they may not be able to afford or keep their home. ADUs can provide a solution to that. Trinidad homeowners will embrace ADUs as a housing solution for aging parents or adult children that skirts exploding real estate and rental prices. In other cases, ADUs create a source of rental income for the primary Trinidad homeowner to defray rising expenses and provide an economic cushion for the retirement here in Trinidad. Each ADU stabilizes the household of a primary Trinidad homeowner by providing income-producing asset. It also benefits the eventual renters with affordable housing. The homeowner might even affordably pass the property on to Trinidad's next generation. ADUs help Trinidad seniors age in place, stay in their home, and have a caregiver to live in the ADU, or vice versa. ADUs can help our up-and-coming Trinidad youth stay in the community they love while getting out on their own affordably. Adding ADUs would help our local economy too. We need more workforce housing to attract new business. ADUs would not be used for rentals of less than 30 days, so no Airbnb use. The owner of the property must live in either primary unit or the ADU, so it keeps outside investors from grabbing this housing opportunity. I encourage the City Council to take steps to ease zoning issues and other barriers to building ADUs. I also encourage you to do this soon and aggressively as possible. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Just for information, if you want to get with Mike Valentine, or organization, that particular item is actually being addressed in our new code. So
That
if you
is
want to
correct.
talk, so if you want to talk to him, he'll explain to you how that's going.
I would love to reach out to you. Thank you so much for your time and for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thomas, I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name.
Bite cabbages, I know it's a mouthful.
Okay.
It's like bite cabbages, but with V's.
Okay.
So I'm here today to not so much talk about homelessness, but talk about solutions to it, because I'm sure you've heard plenty of complaints and I don't need to reiterate them. Trinidad is a small town, and frankly this issue is affecting the entire, actually it's affecting the entire nation. Over the last 2 years, unsheltered homelessness has increased 3% nationwide. So it's definitely not just a Trinidad issue. Unfortunately, no one in the state seems to be prepared for this. In Pueblo, they just opened their newest homeless shelter in January, and within a week it was over capacity. The Denver shelter, I don't have exact quotes on the numbers, but it was they said they had 2,700 and some odd permanent beds. In January of last year, when they made the report, they were housing over 3,200 people. Trinidad's a small town. I don't think a permanent homeless shelter is realistic, frankly, and I can see why it might be unwelcome, but I still want to see a solution. People are, there's no legal place to sleep if you're homeless in Trinidad right now. It's illegal to camp by the river, it's illegal to camp on the street, it's illegal to be in alleys, and so people are camping wherever they can stay hidden, which means the river, behind people's businesses, inside people's businesses. There's a lot of trespassing reports. In the winter, the public bathrooms have been closed. Some of the businesses, like the McDonald's, make it so you need a receipt to use their restroom, otherwise it's magnetically locked, and so you're having people defecating throughout the city, and there's a lot of complaints about that. But I'm a person of solutions, and I really think that an easy, simple, inexpensive solution to this would simply be a protected camping ground. Several cities have made use of this kind of thing. All it is it's a designated space where people can go camp overnight and not be at risk of having their things taken, seized by police, where it's legal, where they're not going to get charged with a misdemeanor and end up in jail for being homeless. I don't know how much, how active y'all are on social media, but I have seen many pictures in recent weeks of locals going down to the river and slitting tents, carrying away sleeping bags. I mean, this is something that's happening. And I've talked with a lot of these people. I have become friends with a lot of them, and they're scared. I know one couple who their camp is 5 miles up the river because they want to avoid being harassed. And every day they walk 5 miles into town to go to the workforce center and see if there's any more job listings. The other thing that has affected this couple is that they don't have an address. They have their driver's licenses, they have their birth certificates, they have everything they need, but because they don't have a job, or they don't have a home address, they have not been allowed to procure a job, and have even been told before interviews, I'm sorry, we can't hire you because you're homeless. A protected camping ground could provide them a legal address to put on job forms. The only maintenance costs that you would incur with this would be some kind of porta potty system, which would prevent a lot of, this buildup of waste around the city, and some kind of garbage, a dumpster. And that would just help prevent the trash, especially along the river, which is a major concern for an environmentalist like me. I don't think anyone on either side of the issue right now is happy. Whatever you feel about our homeless population, a solution needs to be found. And the solutions are not in Pueblo, and the solutions are not in New Mexico, they're here in Trinidad. So I really hope that you've taken this to heart and that you consider my recommendation, and I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak with you.
We'll mention one thing. You mentioned that there are other areas that maybe have done this.
Mhm.
If you can get that information and bring to Mike,
Okay.
so that if you have any place that's done this
Yeah.
without any issues.
Absolutely, I will do that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much.
I agree.
Jay Gonzalez?
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good. I come before you guys to talk about murals and the potential mural ban that is could possibly be enacted here. My real question is, why are we wasting our time? Why are we wasting money? Why are we wasting legal resources to really? We're trying to bring people into town for a space to create for artists, to people that come to town. But yet, on the other hand, you have a couple people here in town who don't really like the idea of murals, and they want to go ahead and take that away from everybody, which is kind of a First Amendment right that people have. Also see that it opens up the city to a whole laundry list, to where there could be some potential legal remedies that have to, if a business owner wants to, on a non-street facing side that is not protected by the historical district, which we're talking about portions of the buildings that are stucco and stuff like that have no historical value to it whatsoever. Why couldn't I just have a really hard time wrapping my head around why the city would potentially want to even waste the time, because this is really what it is. It's kind of just a waste of time and legal resources to even look up this stuff. And it's just, I don't understand. You guys are so busy right now with so much stuff going on. Why are we trying to over-regulate things and tell other artists who are coming into town, hey, listen, you can do what we want, can't really do what you want. And that's kind of really my point of view at it, is that we've really, this city council and the city has gone through great expense and a lot of really hard work to put the space to create together. And now we don't want murals in the town to beautify things here in the city. I really have a hard time wrapping my head about why anything of that nature would even when, you have entities in the city that are looking to do mural projects in the city to bring more people into the community. So, I mean, it's really tough for me to wrap my head around of why we would want to over-regulate our town, especially when it comes to art, when everything that this town is pushing for is a artsy, free kind of atmosphere, enough that we're building a whole living situation for artists to come to town. So, I mean, that's really kind of is just some questions that I have for council is that why is this of any significant importance? Why can't we just table this, put this to bed for a longer, for something way further down the road? For even to put one legal hour into it is a waste of time. It's a waste of the city's money, and it's a waste of the city's resources, when you guys have much significantly better things to worry about than to whether somebody paints the side of their building. Thanks.
Okay, we'll be addressing that later on in our agenda.
No, I understand it, and thank you for having me up here
Okay,
today.
thank you.
Can the audience speak at this point? I'm sorry, I'm new here, so I don't know the protocol.
We actually have a public hearing.
You have to sign up. I see. Okay. I'll find out about it.
Item, number 5, consent agenda approval. 5A, approval of regular meeting minutes of February the 18th, 2020. Special meeting minutes of February the 20th, 2020. Just want to mention that there was one, I think, typo in there, where, on the third line item where Tony Boone came up, it had, trials instead of trails.
Okay.
So just a typo, correction. Item B, approval of the bills for $1,643,726.98. Item C, approval of the payroll for February the 22nd, 2020 through March 6th, 2020. The amount of $354,640.90. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Call vote, please.
Goodall?
Yes.
Griego? Yes. Matei?
Yes.
Ogletree? Yes. Shu?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Rico?
Yes. Item 6, public hearing. 6A, new hotel and restaurant liquor license application filed by Sella V Incorporated doing business as the Cafe at 135 East Main Street by Jody Van Busker.
Yes.
Hearing is now open. Les?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Lopez, will you please do the other, we're gonna swear you in.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I didn't
Raise
prepare.
your right.
you.
No, I didn't know that.
Swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
Ms. Van Busker,
Yes.
you are representing C'est La Vie Inc. this evening, is that correct? And that is a Colorado corporation of which you are 100% owner?
Correct.
Okay, and your proposal this evening is for a hotel and restaurant liquor license?
Correct.
And we're talking about 135 East Main Street, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, ma'am, how long, do you own that premises?
I do not. I
Okay,
just-
and who do you rent from?
Mark and Ann Danielson.
Would you tell us, please, for those who may not know, how long have you had a business at that address?
8.5 years.
And we were talking about the cafe, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So for 8.5 years, you have had a restaurant at that address?
Yes.
And you have not had a liquor license, is that correct?
Correct.
So you were asking council this evening to consider your application for a hotel and restaurant liquor license.
Correct.
Okay, and would you tell us, if you would please, ma'am, I mean, you're, like I said, you're the 100% owner of the corporation.
Yes.
Okay, and it's a corporation in good standing, formed in 2011, if you know?
It is.
Okay, thank you very much. The landlord at that premises, is that a Winterwood Group LLC?
It is.
Represented, I believe, primarily by Mark Danielson?
And Annie.
And Annie, okay, so both together as
Robert,
well.
yes.
Okay. Now, ma'am, I want to ask you, you and I have had a conversation during the course of your application. You have provided a very thorough application and you have a diagram. You're asking for a licensed premises that is a bit larger than your restaurant itself, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and would you explain that to council, if you would please, why you're asking for that?
Okay. So most of you have been to the cafe. So you walk into my side, it's just one big room. There are some makeshift walls that are pushed up against a little pony wall to separate the two sides, but it's just one room. So my side is completely done up, ready for business. It's a cafe. The other side is completely vacant. It is all 135 East Main Street, but I only lease the one side of the room. Sounds a little weird. In the lease, it does state that they could potentially find another leasee to take the other side. That would have to be very special circumstances, considering that it is one room. There's no way to separate us from each other. So the landlord and I have had a conversation about myself taking over that side in the event of special events. mainly downtown entertainment district events like Blues Fest. They're having 3 of those this year. Artocade. But with the liquor license, I could set up a bar area on that side to minimize the foot traffic through the restaurant side. And so he's 100% on board for me to do a short-term event lease at times when I need it, or even long-term lease it. But as far as the liquor license was concerned, I had him approve, sorry. I asked him about the whole, may I put the whole thing in there so that I can use this side at any given time if that's okay with you? And he said absolutely. So we have a paper.
Correct, and mayor and council members at your seating places, yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to read that?
Sure, mayor, if you would.
I'll read that first.
Okay.
City of Trinidad, Trinidad, Colorado, March 2nd, 2020, to whom it may concern. Jody Van Buskirk, doing business as LOV Incorporated, has the right to occupy the downstairs space at 135 East Main Street. That is adjacent to and east of the cafe, either under a series of short-term lease arrangements that are separate from her longer-term lease of the cafe space, or under a separate long-term lease. The purpose of either lease is establishment of an overflow bar set up for which periodically serves as an extension of her current business. Sincerely, Mark Danielson, owner of 135 East Main Street.
And ma'am, so we're clear, is it your desire to have that serve as like extra space during entertainment district events?
Yes.
Okay. And have more seating capacity, more of a licensed premises to have people come in during those events?
Correct.
Okay. And otherwise, do you anticipate that being part of the restaurant, or will your restaurant be its current size?
There is potential to expand, and the Danielsons have been asking me for 8 years to go ahead, take the other side, expand, get bigger. But it's an unfinished area, so it would require substantial cash input to get it up and running. So the restaurant side seems to be doing just fine as it is, but for these events, thinking ahead, if you will, for these events, just having a little extra space to minimize the foot traffic through people sitting, eating. If you've been in my cafe, the concept is solid, but it's not common. So to keep everything flowing as it should, I need a different area to serve alcohol.
Okay. But you will be serving alcohol in the restaurant if given this liquor license by council?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is, the main priority here is like a nice beer and wine with lunch.
And you're not planning on serving dinner, at least not for now?
Not now. My restaurant doesn't really house the equipment necessary to do a full-scale dinner. I do have maybe some little happy hour ideas, like 4 to 8 charcuterie and tapas with nice beers and wines, but short hours, nothing crazy, but potential for revenue for my establishment.
Understood. Ma'am, you circulated the petitions, or the petition in favor of your license application, correct?
I did.
Okay, and you obtained in council, and mayor, so you know, 122 signatures, 19 were stricken, there were 103 valid signatures, 100% of them were in favor of the application. Does that sound about right?
It sounds right.
Okay. And then you submitted yourself for a criminal background check, came up clear.
Squeaky.
Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, I guess.
Yeah, right. Not unfortunately. And Ms. Van Buskirk, how many employees are you, how many do you have now, or how many are you planning on?
Teeters between 4 and 5 in the off season, and then it can go up to like 6 or 7 during the really busy times.
Okay, and all of them, will they serve alcohol?
They can, yes. Colorado state law is you have to be 18 years of age with a 21-year-old person supervising.
Right. And will, you know what TIPS training is?
I do.
Okay, will all your employees undergo TIPS training?
I think that it's a good idea. I'm under the impression that it's not required, but I think it's a good idea, especially at a young age.
Okay. And, is there anything else you wanna tell city council, anything?
I'm excited about the potential. I'm excited to revamp, renew, rebrand, do something. It's been 8.5 years and I need to change it up a bit. So I'm hoping that this is the avenue that's gonna help me out to do that.
Okay, and now just a last question or two, that is, you understand you're responsible for all of the liquor enforcement compliance on your premises?
Correct.
Right, no one can drink outside of the premises, no serving of minors or visibly intoxicated people. You understand, if you're granted a liquor license and you violate, you could lose your liquor license?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I have nothing further, Mayor.
Any questions from council, Mr. Matei?
Not for me.
Ms. Grego?
No.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Mr. Ogletree?
No.
Nothing.
The only question I had is, what days are you open and how many hours of the day are you open, off-season and?
We are open 7 days a week.
Okay.
Monday through Friday, we're open 9 to 3. Sometimes in the summertime, those hours stretch to 4.
Okay.
And then Sunday 9 to 2, Saturday 9 to 2, and Sunday 10 to 2.
Good.
Short little hours.
That was a good question. Good to know. Okay. Thank you very much.
Am I done?
You are.
You're done?
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience to speak for or against the granting of the liquor license applications filed by CLV Incorporated?
Yes, it's a wonderful thing. Growing businesses, it's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's none. Hearing is closed. I don't see any reason for an executive session. So with that, I'd like to have a motion, please.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Who's the second? Aaron Williamson.
Area.
Any further discussion from council? Not call vote?
Goodall,
Yes.
Grego,
Yes.
Matei,
Yes.
Ogletree,
Yes.
Shu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Read the findings, please.
I will. This matter came on for a hearing on the application of C'est La Vie Incorporated doing business as the Cafe at 135 East Main Street in Trinidad, Colorado, for a new hotel restaurant license before the City Council of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, acting in its capacity as a local licensing authority on March 3rd, 2020, in the City Council chambers in City Hall. The City Council, having reviewed the application and supporting documents and reports of the City Clerk and other City staff, petitions admitted into evidence at the hearing and the testimony taken during the hearing, makes the following findings. The neighborhood consists of an area located within the city's corporate limits. Jody Van Buskirk, Pat Howlett, and Jay Garcia testified in favor of granting the license. No persons testified in opposition of granting the license. No other persons testified in favor of or opposed to granting said license. The city clerk's report showed that there are 40 liquor license outlets within the neighborhood. Of these, there are 5 fermented malt beverage off-premise licenses, 1 fermented malt beverage on-premise license, 1 club license, 14 hotel and restaurant licenses, 6 liquor store licenses, 7 tavern licenses, 1 arts license, 3 beer and wine licenses, and 2 lodging and entertainment licenses. The applicant submitted a petition regarding the liquor license application. This petition contained 122 total signatures, of which 103 were residents or business owners from within the neighborhood, 21 years of age or older, in favor of the issuance of a liquor license at this location. No remonstrances were submitted. The applicant, through testimony and other evidence, made a prima facie showing that the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood are not being met by existing liquor outlets, and that the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood favor the issuance of said license. Based on the evidence presented at the hearing and the investigative materials provided for the hearing, the City Council finds that the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood are not being met by the existing liquor establishments, that the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood favor the issuance of a license to the applicant, and that the applicant officers are of satisfactory moral character. Therefore, the City Council of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, as the local liquor licensing authority, hereby approves the application of C'est La Vie Incorporated, doing business as the Cafe, at 135 East Main Street in Trinidad, Colorado.
Thank you. Good luck. Item 6B, public hearing for consideration of an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 2-15-6 of chapter 2, administration, article 3 of the Trinidad Municipal Code regarding council meetings. Hearing is now open. Les.
Mayor, council members, thank you. Rather than commenting on this again, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. I believe you're all familiar with what this is and what we're seeking to accomplish.
Okay, let's go ahead and get some comments.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In the absence of council reports, which are the carriage dragon, if you will, of opportunity to speak, because it's all inclusive of other non-specified items, what do you propose as a mechanism for council to address issues of spontaneity that are not necessarily included in what could be a very limited agenda?
And far be it from me to recommend limitation of issues of spontaneity. No, I'm just kidding. And so, in the ordinance, if you will look at that, what that is attached or that is in your packet, under the ordinance change, subparagraph A, it would be policy items. This would be the agenda. Policy items, staff reports, and council communications. And it's anticipated in that you would comment on events in the future, things that are coming up, matters of importance, things that you feel a need to comment on. Again, there are things that are upcoming. And then during the work sessions, you would comment on things that had happened previously.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, and I do want to say that at the last work session, we had kind of a long, grueling work session, and I know the mayor was the only one who had anything to report on, and it kind of seemed like it was just after a long time, it was kind of, I think, perhaps not well received, but it was just kind of, people may not have been paying as close of attention as they might otherwise. So it may be best at work sessions if you begin with the council reports and the things that you have done in the preceding 2 weeks since the last work session. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It answers my question and addresses my concern. I don't want anybody limiting my opportunity to speak.
Until May 19th. That's right.
That's great.
But you know, when you think about it and you see the atmosphere and the sheer reason why we have council meetings, it's a formal, very concise meeting. You know, sometimes we have spontaneity, sometimes we do not. But I think it would do well for us to make those comments that we make in a more relaxed setting. We're not trying to, hide anything from the public. Moreover, we're trying to lessen the information and the work that we have to do in a regular meeting, and then put that way we can discuss, go back and forth. And one thing, this is an observation, not a comment, that during regular meetings, by the time we have our council reports, the only people that are here are the media and staff. Everybody else pretty much leaves. That might change. But I think we're not trying to hinder, we're not trying to hide. We're just trying to make our meetings more efficient.
Good point.
I kind of agree with you on the efficiency and also to take a little bit of a load off our staff because they do a great amount of work and adding more to it is kind of crazy. So the less work they have, the better we can perform our duties. And like I say, at work sessions, we can cover any information that needs to be done.
Thank you.
So, Les, what you're saying is that we would move the time that we are talking about the boards or commissions that we're liaising to a period of time that's set aside for policy items, staff reports, and council communications?
I would say that the report on the boards and the commissions that you have attended in the 2 weeks preceding would be reported on at the work sessions.
Okay, and when does the time come that we talk about things that are coming up?
Then that would be at the policy items, staff reports, and the council communications. So in other words, at the regular meeting, you would comment on announcements, meetings that you want the public to be aware of, matters of importance that you want to direct the community's attention to, things that are upcoming. And so that is when you would do it in that portion of the agenda.
The problem that I have with putting that discussion in a work session, or the discussion of what's going on at boards and commissions in a work session, as well as what this also does, which moves city manager reports or city attorney reports, as I understand it, to a work session, is that we don't have a written record of it. And I think that's a mistake, because I think that it's helpful to have that written record about what was said, what was going on at that point in time. Also, a report, when you or the city manager give a report, you're answering to us. At a work session, it's a discussion. And so there is some more formality to it, and I like that. I think that's good, because that is the situation that we're in. The other concern I have is that this kind of negates the importance of boards and commissions, which do a great deal of the work of the city. And if we're going to kind of put them into a work session where they're not getting public attention as much as they have been for what they're doing, maybe we need to move to a different reporting system for them, and perhaps we need to have a time on our council agenda where they come in and report. Here's what tourism is doing this next 6 months. Here's what Main Street, here's what historic preservation is doing, because they are tasked to do a great deal of what's in our comprehensive plan. And I don't think it's a good idea to not give them the attention that they do. Most of them are doing this for free.
And if I could, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending this proposal necessarily, but I understand everything that you have said. And I think it would be a little hard for members of boards and commissions to come in and say what they were going to be doing for the next 6 months. But anything that the city manager or I feel the need to report on, we can report on during the staff reports portion of that agenda item. And so, I understand what you're saying. You were going to say something, Councilman.
I was going to say, then why haven't you been doing that to this day? Where we've had it on the agenda is a special time. That's just for you and the city manager. Why haven't you been doing it in the staff reports then?
Because we have the city manager and the city attorney report right after we have the council reports. That has been a regular item on the agenda. And so if this were adopted, the agenda would be changed so that if we had a report or something we wanted to bring to your attention, we would do it during the staff report portion.
Okay. My concern remains.
I understand. Thank you.
Kristen.
I have none.
I just have one quick question. How is this better than just the option of marshaling better discipline for the reports?
Well, okay, that's a question I didn't anticipate. I would say that to really, saying better discipline for the reports might be also kind of synonymous with trying to edit any one of you regarding what you were reporting on. In other words, who's the arbiter of what is appropriate or more or less disciplined in the council reports or the report by the mayor? So I understand what you're saying. I just want to say too that, to Councilman Griego's point, my takeaway is that commenting on what you have done in the preceding 2 weeks is a little more informal. It's a little more kind of, this is what I've done, this is what I'm here to report on, and I'm not trying to downplay or, diminish in any way what that is, but the easiest way to do that, I think, is to, again, say, we will comment on things that are coming up so the community is paying more attention at regular meetings, will know about what is upcoming, but the things that we have done will be reported on at the work session. And I understand your audience is not as broad or perhaps as captive, but it is a forum for you to get the message out there about what the boards and commissions are doing that you are the liaisons for.
I have one quick follow-up comment. It's been my experience that many people's concern is that it's a valuable part, and it really aids to the city government's presenting of a appearance of transparency with those to be able to be made publicly and for a record has been my understanding.
I am all about transparency. And I think transparency is especially important when we're talking about things like the conduct of council's business, everything being open, everything being public, everything being done in this kind of open setting. So I would, with all due respect, I would kind of bristle at the notion that this is an attempt to in any way shirk our responsibilities about being transparent and open. And I am not trying to keep anyone from reporting on anything that they deem important, anything that you have accomplished, or anything that has gone on, again, during the prior 2 weeks. I never want you to think that I am trying to do that.
I just want to clarify that quickly. I understand it wouldn't be an intentional path to take to decrease transparency, but I just think the optics of it might be important as well. And I have no further questions.
May I make a comment? As we get it further into this discussion, I just think I need my opinion to be said here, because the way I look at the way our meetings are set up before you came on board, and about 3 or 4 months before that, our work sessions were few and far between. And with urging of council, they're regular. And the way I look at it, the way I perceive our meetings to be, and I'm just saying this to give you my opinion here, the way I perceive the meetings to be is the work sessions, I feel we get a lot more work done. I can talk to you, you can talk to me, we go back and forth, communication is open. Mr. Murphy is here filming it the whole time, there's nothing that's hidden from those meetings. And I feel that the formal meeting, the council meeting as we have tonight, is the action item of what we have discussed in the work session. I would much rather, if you have, you're on the library board.
Yes.
I would much rather we be in a setting, because that was my prior position. I'd much rather be in a position that you, hey Aaron, how are things working? Do you have any questions? Are you concerned about something? Can I clarify something for you? And you and I can do a little back and forth. I really enjoy the work sessions, and I think that's a better place to do this. I just think it's easier for all of us. That's my take.
No, just one clarification. You mentioned about committee reports and that. Well, all they have to do is put it on the agenda to come. We're not taking them off, so it isn't an issue there. I mean, they're welcome to get on the agenda and come and make a report what's going on and everything else.
We might need to encourage them to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's even better that way.
Policy and staff reports.
Yeah.
Just listen as a regular agenda item. Every month have a different word.
And if I could, a point made earlier by Councilman Griego, and that is, these municipal professionals that you all rely upon, I think what they would all be thinking at a time like this, since I'm not one, I'm just some lawyer down the street, but they would be saying, this really is kind of the culmination of the city doing business. We, you know, as an incorporated municipality, this is what we have to do. They're doing business all day, every day, of course, as the city, but this is the culmination of the city's business. And so insofar as that is the case, you know, respectfully, commenting on you know, the boards and commissions is not as consistent with doing the city's business as is that going on a work session, if that makes sense. And a more conversational tone, as Councilwoman Griego so aptly made my argument for me.
Our work sessions are noticed and the topics that we're gonna discuss are noticed and we have to stay to those topics. And so it isn't a freewheeling kind of conversation. We have to talk about the things that we have noticed. So I'm not sure that's exactly accurate, at least from my perception, that we can talk about anything at a work session. So maybe we need work sessions where there is an open discussion about boards and commissions or something like that.
Reports of council. I think we can make that a regular, or something to that effect, a regular item on the work session agenda.
So just taking what we have now and moving it over to the work session and say, reports by council.
Yes, sir.
City manager.
Yeah. Aside from future events.
Those are posted pre-event consideration. I mean, you know what's going to be discussed anyway.
Correct.
And if a citizen has interest, they can.
Yes.
They can also review Mr. Murphy's recordings of it.
Correct.
And what it does is it eliminates the recording formal documentation on the part of staff.
Correct.
That's an interesting compromise. I think it's a good idea.
I look back at our work session agendas, and always the last item on a work session agenda is discussion of other possible agenda items. So that's an open, I mean, we don't have to stick to these subjects.
I have not taken that to mean we can talk about anything. I've taken that as, you know, what are we gonna talk about next at the next work session?
I think it's pretty.
I think that it's less formal than is this setting. It's less specific than is this setting. And that would be the time to look at everybody's pictures of vacation in Disneyland. And not necessarily here.
Let me go and weigh in on this and we'll end this, and I think that I can understand the whole process of what you're trying to do. As far as having time in the policy and staff reports, it's a good time to report something of big importance to the community and to council, which sometimes I do have, and I know sometimes other people might have something of big importance. And I think that is a good thing to do. I don't have a problem with moving the council reports over to the first part of the agenda in the work sessions. And like everyone has mentioned, that, you know, Mr. Murphy goes ahead and he tapes it anyhow. There's time for those communications for us to talk about what we've done or in the past, or will be doing in the future if something comes up. So I don't really see a problem with that. The biggest thing is we want to make sure that we continue to report to the community of what we are doing, whether it's a work session or whether it's in the policies, open communications or whatever. So I really believe that that's the way to go. So let's move forward with okay. Anyone in the audience to speak for or against the ordinance change?
Yes, sir.
I'm Pat Fletcher. Hi, everybody. Well, I've given some thought to this, and I cannot kind of understand the rationale of taking this out of the meeting such as it is tonight. You've got a lot more of the general public here tonight to hear what's going on. When you have a work session, it's kind of like this very specific audience you get that maybe has their issue they want to talk about, and maybe one or two issues. When they come in to talk about their issue, I don't think it's going to go in their ear like, okay, I'm interested in what everybody's been doing on other boards and commissions around the town. And I'm gonna preface my talk with that, so here I go. I think the council reports are vital. The reports that you give via the boards and commission liaisons are a means to bring to you the ideas and the concerns and the input from the many volunteers that comprise these boards and commissions, as well as serving as a go-between between them and you, the city. Karen, thank you for all the time you have spent with the library board, and Rusty, the time you spent with the Parks and Rec board. We greatly appreciate your time and effort. We greatly appreciate that you're coming back to a formal meeting and kind of sharing with everybody else what we're doing on our board and commission. That's important to us. Would you rather each board member of these commissions get on your agenda all the time to come and tell you what we're doing? Tell you about the issues and ideas and the concerns and other types of input that we would have. That would take a great deal more time for you than listening, great more time you listening to us than if you were to give your reports summarizing what you come back with from your board meetings. That would take a lot more time than your appointed board liaisons that condense, summarize what we've been talking about. We put a lot of time and effort on our part as volunteers on your boards and commissions, and I think the least you can do to kind of validate what we do by listening to each other's reports, what you've come away with from the particular meetings you've sat in on with us. Some citizens attend council meetings and some see them via Channel 71. I think it's important for them to see all the extra time that their elected officials are doing outside the meetings, representing the city, civic functions and public events, boards and commission meetings, as well as what you bring back to share with the rest of council from your board meetings that you've been attending. I want to give one case in point. The community drug-free meetings address the issues of drug addiction in our town. Aaron Ogletree, Mike Valentine, you've been coming to those meetings. You represent the town at these meetings. They're very well attended by all sorts of entities from around Trinidad. You talk about the problems, maybe some solutions, and you maybe come back with some ideas that you've come from those meetings, that you come back with from those meetings. I think the important thing is keeps the line of communication open in such matters, and I don't think anybody can disagree. This is a pretty important matter, and I'm glad that the city council is being on top of that. Unless, of course, you consider it too trivial to bring back, and I hope that's not the case. It's not a trivial thing at all. Another example, the mayor, Phil Rico, he represents Trinidad in many, many meetings around the state and a lot of meetings at the Capitol level. I think it's important that when he shares what he's been doing and what things he sees as relevant to our city as he travels, is important to have at a general meeting for everybody to hear, rather than at a work session when that's maybe not going to be as highlighted as it would be at a meeting such as tonight. I would say, should he keep it to himself or have an open forum where he can share it via the vehicle of his reports? Thank you.
Anyone else to speak for or against? None? Hearing's closed. Item B1, second reading of an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 2-15-6 of chapter 2, administration, article 3 of the Trinidad Municipal Court Code regarding council meetings. Does I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Matei?
A yes vote would be to repeal, correct?
Yes.
Oh, no, I have nothing.
I think Pat made some great points. I agree with everything she said. And I still strongly don't like the idea of dropping, an agenda item for the city attorney and city manager from our reports. You stand differently from the rest of the staff, and we need to hear specific things from you rather than just general staff concerns. And so I don't like that. I don't think that's wise.
Rusty,
Nothing.
Aaron?
Would just request a clarification to the vote. I was confused as to the yes vote to repeal.
The yes would repeal
As in,
what we currently have.
Say again?
So Russ would, a yes vote would do away with council reports
Oh,
at the
okay,
council meeting,
okay.
that's what he was clarifying.
I understand.
Alright.
After listening to Pat, I was just kind of questioning, would it be advisable, and I mean, she brought up the fact about the city manager, our attorney, my report of some big importance because of all the stuff that I do. Would it be advisable maybe to have something under that, the staff reports where we are listed as a reporting time? Would that be, what would you say about that?
Well, that would be fine. Let me come back up. I want to kind of emphasize that if there is something that we need to report to you, on, we will absolutely get that information to you. But if you would like to keep a portion where the mayor has, where you have the ability to address things and say certain things that a city manager does or I do, that would be fine. But again, I think we would have that opportunity in the portion listed as staff reports, okay? And I really want to emphasize that, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of everything that everyone is reporting on or that everything is done, but I just want to respond to your question, Mayor.
And I could understand that, we're not downplaying the board and commissions either. And one of the things, and I think Karen brought that up, it might be advisable where, if there is something of particular importance, that they bring it to our attention so that we could list it. Let's say you have something with the Partners for a Drug-Free Community that you want to talk about. I think that would be something, if there's something of great importance, that could be brought forward as an individual item as well, somewhere in the policy. I think that can. As far as any other boards and commissions or anybody reporting, we could bring, like you mentioned, a different board or commission to report to us one every 2 weeks or two every 2 weeks, depending on the size of our work session. I think that might be something that we could do as well. I think we could find where this would work. The transparency issue concerns me a little bit, some of the optics. However, we will all be able to report during the work sessions of what we have been doing, of what we will be doing. I think that shouldn't be a real big issue because like Mr. Murphy, he tapes all of our meetings and that's available. And putting it at the front of the work session item would probably be a good thing. It could be too that if there is something specific maybe that we want to talk about in the work session, we can let Audra know that she can list. That way if someone in the community sees that particular item is going to be spoken about during the work session, it might be a way to draw these people that might have some concern.
Good point.
Or they want to be, they want to come and listen or at least have an input.
Very good point. One thing I'd like to say too, it is always important for regular meetings, and also, of course, we're always saying this at executive session. We have to stick to the subject, stick to what is posted, and not discuss anything else or take up other items of business. I would like to say in work sessions, you want to post whatever is going to be on the agenda and whatever is going to be discussed. But it doesn't mean that you can't say something in the work session. Right? You don't want to have a thorough conversation because you haven't given the community notice that you're going to be talking about it. So you don't want to, not have something on there. That would not be transparent. But it doesn't mean that you can't talk about something, in a cursory fashion, just something that you want to discuss. And again, you wouldn't want to do it thoroughly. You wouldn't want to do it like you would in a normal work session, kind of on the agenda sort of discussion, but you're not violating any rules if something comes up in a work session that you simply want to mention. You're not violating the law. You're not, undertaking business that you didn't give the community notice of. You're not doing anything illegal. You're just having a brief conversation during a work session. In other words, the same rules do not apply insofar as you're limited, you're allowed a limited bit of leeway in terms of what you can talk about in a work session. Okay, thank you.
There's no further discussion from council?
Yes.
I was gonna say, I don't, city council members are not staff, so it wouldn't be appropriate to put our reports in staff reports.
I agree. I didn't mean to suggest that. And so what you would be doing is, if there are future items that you want to report on in a regular meeting, that would be in council communications. And then in the work sessions on past developments that you would want to comment on, that is when you would be commenting on those items. Maybe, did I misspeak?
Why can't we just put it under the policy items and staff reports? Why don't we just add in there something that, council reports of importance or something? Is there something with an issue with that? I don't know.
Right.
I just bring that up to kind of understand the question.
The way,
Oh,
the way it's written here.
I understand the way it's written, yeah.
It's all in one, policy items, staff reports, council communications is one segment of a meeting. And it's not, I don't think it's appropriate for council to be reporting on that section of the meeting.
Right. Not staff reports, but I would say council communications are there for you. Let's say the tourism board is going to take up something very important and you want to make an announcement and let the community know that. Any one of you, whether the tourism liaison or any one of you, may want to comment in that portion of council communications to make your announcement about upcoming business and things that are going to be happening. I'm done, yes.
I think that relocating council reports from the middle or the end of the meeting to the front of the meeting, it undermines the whole intent of the idea. The idea is to relocate those kinds of communications to a work session where they can be more readily absorbed into the discussion. And I recognize that the idea is the formality doesn't exist, and to Ms. Fletcher's point, people don't get the recognition. Well, they do. It's on the video if you want to. And if it's significant enough for you to be a participant, then come here and do so. If any future item is of that grave importance, then before the next meeting, it should become an agenda item into itself, as compared to thrown into a general discussion. I think we either gotta move it out or leave it the way it is. But moving it forward in the agenda doesn't solve anything. It just repositions it. And in my mind, as I sit here listening to this, and based on my life experiences, I view it with all due respect to the judiciary. It's county court and district court, if that makes sense. District court taking care of more felonious times for activities than those of greater consequence, millions of dollars of budget, and those sorts of things. Granting licenses, as is our authority. And county court takes care of the more misdemeanor kind of, lesser important kind of things, with all due respect to boards and commissions. But it's not the same gravity what happened at the library board as compared to how we're gonna spend $52 million. And I hope that makes my point. And I give my support.
Any other comments? Not, call a vote please.
Goodall,
No.
Griego,
Yes.
McKay,
Yes.
Ogletree,
No.
Shu,
Yes.
Williamson,
No.
Rico.
That's why you get your big bucks. Do your job, man.
I'm thinking over some of the things that have been said. I'm gonna say no. The reason being no is what James talked about that's reasonable.
You know, Mayor, could I just say, please, that's the third time we've had applause in the meeting.
Yeah.
And the general rule is
No
applause
applause.
or, yeah, please.
Okay. The only thing I would say is that for council, even though we rejected it, is that when we do have our council reports, that we limit it to what we're doing. So that staff does not have an array of stuff that they have got to write. I think that is the control.
I think that's a better solution right there.
Okay, item C, public hearing for consideration of an ordinance defining a mural. And before we move on, I'll just say this about this last one, is that, in a sense, I will be kind of policing some of the stuff that's being said.
Just decided, you don't need to qualify it.
Yes,
Leave it.
okay. Item C, public hearing for consideration of an ordinance defining mural and providing for a moratorium on the installation, creation, placement, or other application of murals on structures within the city of Trinidad corporate limits. Hearing is now open. Yes?
Thank you. I move for one, for those of you keeping score. No, just kidding. That's right. That's right. So, no, and I would like to say, Mayor and members of council, that this is not intended to be a long-term policy matter. This moratorium proposal is so that city council, city staff at your direction can get a handle on murals. And the best example I can think of are the illuminated electronic signs that you see a couple of places in the city. Those happened before we were able to get a handle on those. And so it is appropriate and it is a necessary tool once in a while to have a moratorium or a prohibition on something until we can responsibly regulate and control how that something is done. In this case, murals. And I want to say we've had a number of conversations, city staff has, and you know, with the city consultant and others. We are, I believe we have this on the work session agenda on Monday. Thank you. So we're not like, you know, sweeping it to the side or forgetting about it. I just want to say this is a very temporary measure, but it's something that needs to be done so that, especially in the historic preservation zoning district, you don't have people putting murals on buildings that would really be an affront to all the considerations you want to have for that kind of a zoning classification.
Okay, council, Mr. McKay.
I see the wisdom and I appreciate the fact that it's not permanent, etched in stone. One of the things that oftentimes we are criticized is the marijuana. And things happen so fast, so quickly, we couldn't get a handle on it. And had we maybe taken more time so that we could tread judiciously and cautiously into new waters, if we could help. This, I liken to that, based on my experience, whereby all we're asking to do is a little bit of breathing time to better understand the consequences of what I'm about to vote on. And it's, I support it.
Grego?
I've been privy to a couple of discussions on a board that I represent council on, and it became very clear to me very quickly that this thing could get out of control we would have no control on what was put on buildings, what kind of quality of artwork was put on the buildings. And then, you know, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, because there's a legal ramification to murals as well. I'm not an attorney, I'm not gonna try and explain it to you again, but there it is. You know, we got that notification that was in the Pueblo Chieftain about the artist's right on a building. You know, I don't know, I'm not gonna enter into those waters. That concerns me. It has to be quality. We can't just have murals all over Trinidad without some kind of regulation on it. Number two, it's been very clear to me that boards and commissions are a very important part of this community and of this city government. I agree 100%. I'd like to remind council that about a month or 6 weeks ago, we got a letter signed by every commissioner on the planning and zoning board to ask us to institute this moratorium until we get a hold on this. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, the only issue would be with, is there gonna be any issues with the historical district of putting on buildings that needed to be historically preserved?
You will be answering that question, and you will,
That's up to us, and
Yep.
it doesn't have anything to do with.
you will be considering the regulations to adopt regarding murals in an area such as the historic preservation. And that will be the highest level, I think, of regulation and concern for council in terms of murals, but you'll be considering that.
So the state has nothing to do with it as far as issuing money and stuff for grants and stuff like that?
It's a valid consideration. I will tell you that the level, the kind of historic registry a building may be on is a consideration, something that I have just been learning about from Ms. Clark, but it is a consideration. No one wants to run afoul of state historic requirements in considering a mural that they may put on their historic building.
Yeah, because we have that issue with the church, the historical side, we can't do anything unless they approve it, no matter, so that's my only concern.
I wish we didn't have to have a moratorium. I wish we could just go forward and hammer out whatever our policies are and let people know that the city is going to enthusiastically support creative efforts in the city. I think this moratorium has a messaging that's, I don't think, accurate to how the community as a whole feels about that creative endeavor. I think that it can be done well, and it can be done tastefully and with respect for the historic preservation district, but I understand why we're doing this.
I fully support this. It gives Ms. McCool time to the new codes that we're fixing to adopt and everything that are not addressed in there. We need a little more time to make sure that we have, like Anthony said, to make sure we have our ducks in a complete row. So I am very supportive of this, to give us a little more time.
I have to say I've been surprised at the discussion this is generated outside of City Council with the public, and to be completely forthright about it. I would feel completely different about it if it was a permanent solution that we were looking at quickly. Obviously, that's going to take a lot of consideration. That being said, if this is a moratorium, I'm sorry if I missed it, but is there, internal to this, is there any deadlines for how long the moratorium would be in effect for, when guidance will come about? I mean, because it's from a public perspective, this is the same as saying no murals.
Right.
Aaron, we can open up that moratorium and change it at any time the council wants to.
But I believe it's 6 months. Yeah. It has to be renewed within 6 months, or it will expire. It will expire on its own. But I know that you are going to want to have a policy on murals within a 6-month time period. I understand that. I think everyone on staff knows that it's a high priority, and you want to have a policy. But I just want to respond to your question. So a moratorium like this would expire after 6 months. But again, if you have a policy that you adopt, then it could be as short as, the time frame for getting it on a meeting, first reading, second reading, and then trying to take effect.
Is there precedent in other cities for this, that we can see guidance from that have stood up to legal challenges?
Wait till you see, well, you mean a moratorium or a mural policy?
Well, both.
Well, a moratorium, you can have a moratorium on almost anything. I mean, anything that would not be infringing on, let's say, someone's ability to make a living, you can have a moratorium. It is well within your purview, your authority to regulate what is going on in the city's downtown, especially the historic preservation districts. There is not an infringement on First Amendment rights. I didn't want to comment on, what was said earlier, but in response to your question, this is an area that is absolutely appropriate for you to have a moratorium regarding. And I would say that I have not looked into that, but I am confident there are many communities who have had a moratorium on murals. Because if you didn't have a moratorium, let's say take an example of someone who did not have a historic building but was in the historic preservation district, they could have a mural of day glow, neon, as big as the side of their building. They could go and do that right away if there wasn't a moratorium. They will not be able to do that now because of the fact that you are doing this. So while I'm not answering your question specifically, Councilman, and I apologize for that, I will respectfully submit that it's malfeasance to say that we're not sure of someone, if they've done it before, so we won't do it. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering if there's precedent.
I understand.
One other question. Considering if this is to take effect, the moratorium, will that be across the board? I mean, no murals, none that are even city sponsored, say?
Well, there will be a prohibition on the on murals. The moratorium upon any new murals in the city of Trinidad. So if someone were to put a mural, I'm sorry, to see if there were specific zoning districts, but if someone were to put a mural, say on a fence with their house at their residence, I'm not sure what we could or would do about that.
The use by right would kind of play into that.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. It is mostly in the commercial district, especially the historic preservation zoning, but also the downtown and the commercial district that we are most concerned with.
And I'm going to weigh in on this. I'm in favor of this. The reason being is that I think it's time that we kind of have some control over these murals. One thing I don't want to see is our community to have murals up there that are not very tasteful, and all of a sudden they're just all over every building in town. So what this does, this allows us some time, some breathing room. And I believe you said that it's going to be on Monday's agenda, correct?
That is correct.
So that'll be an opportunity for council to give us several days to have good discussion on it and any questions that may come up, and I think that that'll be the time to answer some of these detailed questions. Okay.
Question,
Go ahead.
that's to him. If we decide on a mural policy earlier than 6 months, can we vote to undo this?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that moratorium can be regulated.
I feel much better about my chances on this issue.
Back 500.
Anyone in the audience to speak for or against the consideration of the moratorium?
Thanks again for hearing me out. So, like I said before, the city attorney hasn't even done the research on what other communities have before them, yet we're going and having a discussion on putting a moratorium on there. And who really is to say what the freedom that somebody, that an artist wants to express on the side of the building? And I understand that's all within good taste and stuff, and that's something you guys can take up on another matter. But to exclude everybody else from wanting to put a mural up, I mean, who's to say it's art? You say that this isn't art, you say that this isn't art. What's proven in other communities is that when murals come into the neighborhoods and they light up the area, crime stops in that area. More people are walking around in that area. Had the city attorney actually done some real research, he'd actually understand that in some of the neighborhoods that are here, and I'm talking specifically into Denver, it's in the 21st and Larimer, where they have every year the Denver Art Crush. You go back 12 years ago into that neighborhood, it was one of the worst neighborhoods in Denver. Now, fast forward, they have a really huge art festival that happens there every year that brings thousands of people into that community that just wouldn't go there before because there's art. Now that, and with that art brings in those restaurants that comes in, brings in those coffee shops. There's a concept there called the Denver Marketplace. It's on the corner of 21st and Market, right? And it has multiple different businesses that are inside that. There's a coffee shop. There is an ice cream shop. There's a bar that's inside there. We're doing the exact same thing here with the marketplace that we have here that's right across the street from my building as well. Why aren't we following what they're doing for success with the research that's actually already out there that says, hey, this is actually good for the community. This is going to bring people who are in there. You have over 300 artists that descend on downtown Denver for the Colorado Crush, between millions of Instagram followers that follow them, that brings a focus to that area. And if we're trying to highlight and bring focus to the area by bringing artists into here, why would we want to stifle that at all? We're trying to bring more attention to people who aren't here from our community to show that, hey, something different is actually happening here in Trinidad. But also, you also have people who are inside the city who have businesses to where businesses owners like myself that says, hey, listen, I have an idea. I want to put this on the side of my building. I have Welcome to Trinidad on the back as a welcoming beacon. I have Girls Love Flowers. Nothing that's offensive to anybody, but maybe somebody who doesn't like flowers might find that offensive. But who are you to judge that? And how are you going to stop that young man from making money? Businesses want a mural on the side of theirs. That's what he does as part of his living. And you know, we have a bridge that goes along our river walk that has been dilapidated for years, not painted. Now there's a beautiful American flag on there. That American flag is going to be the cornerstone when that hotel is built, that people will walk across into our downtown area. Why are we trying to take that away? And also, you know, there's entities here within the city that are actually trying to bring a mural festival into town that would bring commerce into town. Why would we not want to have that type of exposure for our community? And why are we telling the artists who could potentially possibly move here that, we're gonna have to stop, wait and see if your art's gonna be what we want. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. What I was gonna say is that.
Yeah, another.
Yeah.
One more, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quick. We live in a really divisive time, and so we don't realize that two things can be true at the same time, sometimes. And so, to my friend Jay, I'm not hearing the council of this saying no. The moratorium actually says, let's get ahead of it. We have sign codes that actually, we say what you can put on the sign, but we wouldn't, but so somebody could put a mural on there that would actually violate the sign code. You really, in a town that's actually behind the times with regards to some of these things, and I don't know about the marijuana thing, but I think it's a good idea sometimes to take a breath, to bring in maybe Jay and other folks that actually are passionate about that, to help have our creative community do what they're going to be able to do. The creative communities do more for revitalizing blighted areas than any other thing. It's really the bottom up rather than the top down that works. And we've seen in too many instances, as Jay has pointed out, that when you take an area that actually has had blight, it actually needs some rehabilitation, bring creatives in there. And when you bring creatives in there, great things happen. But I don't see what you're doing as unreasonable to actually say, let's pause, let's get the right people at the table, let's do a small moratorium, let's try and figure this out a little bit. Let's make sure the rules of engagement are there for everyone, and then let's roll that out. To me, it seems to make sense. Thank you.
That couldn't have said it any better, that's just what I was gonna say, that it's time to take a little breather. Go ahead. Come forward, please.
Ladies
Tom?
first.
My name is Levon Ellenbecker, and I also, I agree that the moratorium is a good idea, but I also am a very, very adamant artist, and I myself am a recent homeowner in Trinidad, and I have a desire to put a mural on my garage door, so I don't know how that fits into all of this play on eventually down the road, but I definitely want to encourage and say that to me it's very important that even though you do this moratorium to get your handle and figure things out, I don't want to see this dragged out. I want this to be on the thing and something quickly figured out, because I think it's very important that we encourage the artist and encourage the murals. Because as Jay was mentioning, in Denver, they actually have what's called a mural walk, and they actually do tours of all the murals in town, and it actually brings income into and revenue into the community because of the actual mural tours that they do. I would see that happening, especially with all the tourism and with people coming in with the new state park. We're gonna have a lot more tourism in town. I think we could really take advantage of having a mural walk. So, thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. Tom?
Oh boy. Giving me an anxiety attack. Tom Murphy, more Murphy Conroe for that Times TV. This issue had kind of come up a while back, and I had prepared what I wanted to say to council. So what I want to do is give you guys some backstory, because none of you guys were here 18 years ago. There's some backstory to some of this. 18 years ago I was 18. I wish. It was one of the first times I ever came up to the podium and I was here and spoke. First time was to speak to Cougar Canyon. I apologize for that. They were going to give us land for a pool and all that other stuff. And the next time I came up, I'd spoken because council and Frank might have been part of this, but they passed a historic preservation ordinance. And I got up and I spoke and I said, they had, and I still have all this, where they could find and imprison people. And we'd done quite a lot to our building back in the 80s, and my father was attacked for some of those things. And we were just trying to make our building feasible, you know, as far as utilities. I mean, we paid 3 times what I'm paying now, utilities in the 80s. And they passed a historic preservation ordinance in 2002. And I got up and I spoke, and I said, just take out the finding and imprisoning people. I mean, it was really severe. And the council, the mayor at the time, said no. I'm like, okay, I guess I lost. And I went home, and unfortunately, I got a call from, and I'm going to use names, Dave Brack, and who's been on council, says, you know, we can repeal that. How do you do that? Well, I had to go out and get signatures, myself and 4 or 5 other people signed to the committee, and we forced an election off cycle, so it cost the city a lot of money. We went out, or I went out, and I got signatures. I was at the Blues Fest, and got a lot of them, and we had an election, and we won with 60% of the vote. It was 59 point something to repeal historic preservation. And it took over 10 years before we had any more discussion. They would bring it up at council and they'd say, you know what, we tried it, they repealed it. We're not going to do it. One of the conversations 8 years ago was with myself and the city manager, Lonnie Atkinson, and Steve Bolton, and we're like, look, we own buildings downtown, we're okay with this, but, and things still didn't happen until recently, and now they've put them in their voluntary. The point that I want to make is, I'm okay with a moratorium, but this, like Mr. Williams said, there's a lot of emotion in this, and it's going to take a lot of discussion. And just to share some stories with you, in 2002 when I did this, I and my wife were buying the newspaper, we were getting married, we're remodeling the funeral home. She ends up having life-saving surgery, and to top it all off, at the very same time of all this, I went out and I got signatures and fought and did this. And I'd never been a part of government like that before, and we got it done. But the emotion at that time was severe. I just spent $4,500 with a woman that had a tile business next to Terry's Hallmark. And after we won the election, a few weeks later, she was chasing me down Main Street, screaming at me that I'd ruined Trinidad. We got a call from the people that were having the vote and said, the debate is on Saturday, you need to be there. What debate? Well, you guys are gonna debate us on historic preservation. You know, whether it's billboards or you know, whatever it is. Anyway, we didn't show up. Because it's like, if you called me and said, you know, we're gonna have a debate, do you wanna have a debate, we'll set this up, it was like, it would have been like shooting fish in a barrel. And so we didn't show up. But again, we won the vote. And from that time, there was other times where I had a boycott called to my business by a prominent person in this community. And it was all over that. This is a very hot topic. But I'm like with Mr. Gonzalez, it's like, I've been in Denver and they've got some beautiful billboards, or murals, or whatever it is. And I think it would add to the community. But so my point in sharing all this backstory is please put this in for a lot of discussion, because there are some real divided people. And I just had this discussion with one of the people that participated on one of the boards that called me forward, and it was as if the last 18 years didn't happen, because all his arguments were the same as they were back in 2002. And he says, well, this is the way it should be. It's like, well, I'm a building owner, and I don't agree with you, and if you want to pay my taxes and my utilities and my mortgage, you know, step up to the plate, but it's mine. I'm not going to do day glow less, I promise. but I have some plans. So this is point is, a moratorium's fine. You have time, and I want to hear what McCool has to say. I'm kind of curious, because somebody mentioned that as far as historic preservation, because I'm absolutely, it's like, it's my property. You know, I'm going to be reasonable, and I'm sure there's some people out there that won't be, but let's get it out there before you vote on it, and next thing you know, people are like, I didn't know that was in there. You better flush all of it out and let people know, because there's still a lot of us around from 18 years ago. And I still feel as strongly as I did 18 years ago that it's my building, and before y'all start, you know, legislating it, ask my opinion. And it was all Dave's Barak's fault. You know, he sat up there and said, "We can do this." Only he didn't do a lot of it. I did.
Well, I think I know we're having a discussion on Monday on this, and it may take more than one discussion.
Right. I want to say that we've been working on it. Wally and I have been working on it, and you're gonna see a policy before you that's farther along than you think.
Okay.
I don't think any of it has been a waste of time, obviously, because of the passion that's involved. We need to take our time. So thanks.
Wally?
Could I just say one thing on it real quick? I just wanted to touch on, I totally understand this moratorium and that a final decision may be sooner than later, and we will be touching on this more next week. And first of all, I did want to say, Eiley has been working with me at the city very closely to do a lot of research, both across historic districts across the country, locally, and in regards to First Amendment rights. And next week you'll be presented with a very thorough presentation on all of that. So part of why I wanted to come up here was to inform all the people that are passionate about this, that this probably will be a conversation, and stay in, just stay up to date with what's going on. And next week will be a good chance for those people to educate themselves on what these other communities have done. And I did want to just touch on one thing. What first put the city staff, or what first got the city staff to put me on this, was the letter from planning and zoning. And in that letter, they did not ask for a moratorium, they asked for a policy. And so I hope that we can come up with a good policy that meets the demands of those people soon. I also wanted to touch just on how murals in the economic development report I gave you all last week. I know that our biggest concerns about allowing murals into town is historic preservation, but there are tons of examples of how murals can add to your historic integrity of your community and highlight some of those things, as long as you have a good policy that works in that way. And then last thing I wanted to say is the 6-month moratorium. I do think it's going to be really important that this moves quickly, because there is a mural season. And if you take too long on this, that cuts away on people's time to plan for what type of artwork they'd like to put together and so forth. So I understand that you all probably will pass this moratorium, but if you wait until June or July to make a decision, and then at that point they only have a few weeks to put together their permits to the city, if that is what you all choose to do, then it really cuts down on their time to be able to make that work. So by doing this, you may be delaying murals for an entire another year, even if that's not intended.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Dustin Hyman. I teach at the college there. And I don't know, it seems like you guys are speaking very articulately about prohibiting a form.
Yes. Could you remove your hat, please? You should keep your hat off while you're in council chambers.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't even realize we couldn't applaud either. I didn't know a lot of these rules. And I'm happy to oblige. What I was saying is, it seems like you're speaking articulately about banning a form of art for a period of time, which doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Historically speaking, never has been a good idea. Because there are rules and regulations in place which some people have already spoken towards, about signs, about defamation, about indecency. And so it sounds like really you're putting it off so you can be discerning later on what constitutes artwork and what doesn't. It seems above your pay grade. So I would just, and I'm not going to be here Monday, so I have to say it now, I would just caution you to maybe lean into artistic freedoms and expression as opposed to over-regulating matters in this town. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I am.
State your name, please.
I'm sorry, I'm Tom Nordgren. I'm Dr. Nordgren. I'm faculty at TSJC. We're the Arts and Humanities faculty, and I think we speak practically with one voice. We just want to let you guys know that we see the power of art and of literature and the various things that flow from it. And so we're not trying to. I guess I'm sorry. I'm not that used to being in quite this formal setting, but we have. I think, as I said, speak in one voice, that we are wanting free expression, as Dustin said, and we also want you guys to see the potential that this town has for art, and to open yourself up to that possibility, that it's not something that's going to harm you. It's not something that's going to harm anyone, in my opinion. And we can make a distinction between art and graffiti. And graffiti, at its worst anyway, and there's some gray boundary, obviously, but at its worst, yeah, it defaces property, but there are rules. It's pretty easy to pass a rule to protect property and still allow for murals, which are a different category, and I think deserving of the term art. So, anyway, I just had to get that in. I hope you guys understand that we're here to promote the arts. We work with Corazon de Trinidad, and we run open mics. We're working on the Poetry Festival. We're keeping all of that in our sights early in the year, and right now for sure. And y'all are invited, by the way, down to Jay's grill.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close on this, but I just want to say, we're not trying to shut it down. We just want to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, and all the pieces put together before we move forward. And we will hear and take into consideration everything that we've heard tonight. So, just want to let everyone that has spoken tonight know that we'll do that. The hearing is now closed. C1, second reading an ordinance defining a mural and providing for a moratorium on installation, creation, placement, or other application of murals on structures within the city of Trinidad corporate limits. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion, council? Call vote?
Goodall?
Yes.
Griego?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Ogletree?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Rico?
Yes. Item 7, unfinished business, we have none. Item 8, miscellaneous business. First reading of an ordinance prohibiting hemp cultivation operations and other hemp agricultural operation within the city of Trinidad's corporate limits, and setting a hearing date for consideration of said ordinance to March the 17th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Could I have someone to introduce, please?
I will introduce.
A motion?
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
I introduced, that would be a first. We still
Right,
would need a
yeah,
second,
we
correct?
We would need a second, yes.
I'll
Someone give
second.
a second, Karen? Okay. Okay. Les?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I guess it's my name on the council communications then.
Let's take a moment.
Okay. I can take a moment.
Okay.
Sir?
We can get tired.
Sometime on Mondays. Late, early.
That is so harsh. So now you know what you can do, just leave the room. Go ahead, guys. Okay, thank you. Mayor, council members, this has been discussed previously in work sessions, but hemp, basically anywhere I want to say in close proximity to flowering marijuana, but even not necessarily in close proximity, runs the risk of cross-pollinating with marijuana and ruining it. It ruins the effectiveness, it makes the crop of retail or medical marijuana basically useless. And so what we were trying to do is preserve the ability of marijuana cultivators to be able to cultivate without the risk of cross-contamination or cross-pollination with hemp.
Can I ask just a question?
Yes, sir.
Are we bringing this up, or did somebody that grows marijuana now bring this up?
No, it's been brought to our attention on a number of occasions, and I will tell you that we know of a number of people that were wanting to have hemp grows, and so it was something that staff thought of. Because if we have a hemp farm, if you will, but a hemp cultivation area, an industrial hemp operation, it would potentially, really, if it was of any size anywhere in Trinidad, it could render the entire marijuana crop for Trinidad is useless.
Don't we have hemp farms out on Honey and places like that?
I believe so, but those are far enough away that they won't hopefully cross-pollinate with the marijuana in Trinidad. You know, I will tell you, Councilman, as we were doing this, we were thinking of saying that there couldn't be, you know, if you did this, a hemp operation within 5 miles of a marijuana cultivation facility. Well, you start doing that and you do the radius, and it basically means all of Trinidad. So that is what we are asking for.
I just clarify, just, you know, the city brought that up, or there was some other issues.
Right.
Council's questions, Mr. Matei?
No, sir.
Karen?
No.
That was mine.
What's the 5 mile, that's cited in here, what's the basis for that? It says a safe distance of a hemp cultivation facility will be approximately 5 miles from a corner.
Well, in 5 miles is a rather arbitrary distance, but it seems like a safe distance. It's not based on any scientific information, but seemingly is a safe distance to keep a hemp cultivation facility from marijuana.
Rusty?
So, this is strictly affecting cultivation, correct?
Correct.
It would have no effect on any processing.
Correct.
Okay.
Hypothetically, if that 5 mile radius is extending past the city's boundaries, we would not have any jurisdiction over that.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. Only within the city limits of Trinidad.
Okay. And then I can't imagine this happening. Maybe it could. Would this affect people that wanted to grow hemp in their yard for any particular reason?
Well, that is going to be possibly an issue for another day. But this is for industrial hemp concerns, and so that may be the subject of future, in a broader proposed ban or prohibition on hemp. Because it sounds more onerous to ask for a total ban on growing hemp anywhere. So industrial hemp is defined in the state code. It's an agricultural product, obviously, but it's quite well regulated on the state level. But individual hemp growing is not so well regulated. And it really is not normally a concern of anyone if they're growing hemp on their own property at home.
Most people that would grow it at home, I think, would be after the female side of the plant anyway, so the pollination chances would be slimmer.
Why so rusty?
Well, because when you produce the male parts, most of your product you're going to receive is going to be in the form of seeds. So for the medicinal side, you want the flower side, the higher THC content and everything else. In my medication that I take, getting off all my VA meds, we use a a mixture of CBD and THC together. So to get a better product from the hemp, same as the THC, you want a female plant.
Do we have any industrial hemp operations in the city of Trinidad right now?
We do not. None that I'm aware of.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have one further question. And I have to admit, I'm pretty ignorant to the hemp and marijuana industry at large. But do you know, is all marijuana grown in buildings in Trinidad? And if so, does that?
No. We have a number of outdoor grows.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
But
in Trinidad?
Yes,
Oh.
but to that point, it is my understanding if you had a hemp cultivation facility near an indoor marijuana grow, it would still ruin potentially the marijuana crop. The filtration is for the outgo, not so much for the incoming air. So, but we have a number of outdoor cultivation
Two
facilities.
huge outdoor grows in industrial.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion from council? Yeah, just call a vote, please.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego. Yes. Matei,
Yes.
Ogletree. Yes. Shu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 8B, I'm gonna break this one up a little bit. 8B, city manager position, interim city manager, 6-month extension. I'm gonna break that one line item away from all the other items. The items 2 through 7 will take under one consideration, but item 1 being its consideration of the 6-month extension for Mr. Mike Valentine for the interim city manager position. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Council discussion, Mr. Matei.
The discussion regarding separating item 5 from one
Just,
from the
we're
rest.
going, just covering item 1, which is the interim city manager extension. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, and the reason for it is that the items 2 through 7 have to do with going out and finding a city manager for a permanent city manager. So we're just looking at okaying or not okaying Mr. Valentine's 6-month extension on item 1.
If I could, that is correct, and I know that the council communication is a little confusing, but that does need to please be considered by you and separate from everything else. Well stated by the mayor. Mr. Valentine's contract expires on March 5th, and so it is my request that you please consider approving a new 6-month contract for the acting interim city manager.
Does that clarify?
It does.
Okay.
I have no comments.
Okay.
No comment.
Okay. Call the vote, please, for the extension.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego.
Yes.
Matei,
Yes.
Ogletree.
Yes.
Shu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item B2, I have B2, which is establishment of our search goals for a new city manager permanent. Item 3, which would be the job description for that position. Item 4, for deadline for applications. Item 5, requirement for the applicants. Item 6, for selection procedures, and item 7, timeframe for appointment. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Donna? We have Donna, she's going to go through the process for us.
How nice to have someone else. Really, what a welcome sight.
Thanks for taking up all that time though, so there's less people looking by. Okay, so I guess we need to talk about how we want to proceed as far as advertising and looking to fill the position permanently. So I think you have a lot of that stuff in your packet. first, I think we would start with the establishment of the search goals, what type of search you want to do, whether you want to have an in-house search done by staff. I don't mean in-house, we're only gonna look in-house for the person, but rather that, staff would do the search, or whether we hire a firm to go out and do that. We have done them both ways in the past, so it's entirely up to you. I think that's the first decision you have to make, and then, the second half of that would be the scope of the search, whether you want to do that just locally, Los Angeles County, or regionally, or whether you wanna do that statewide, or whether you wanna do that nationwide. So, I don't know if you wanna take each one of these items separate?
I think we could probably do them all together. I think we could probably talk about the first one, this establishment of the search goals, and then we can probably vote on them all together.
Okay, so do you wanna have that discussion
Let's
now
have that
then on the first
discussion,
one?
establish the search goals, whether we want to advertise, locally, regionally, state, national. So starting with Mr. Matei, any thoughts on that?
No, at the moment, why don't you start that and.
Okay, Aaron, start with you.
Specific to the search,
Yes.
Yeah, specific to the search for new city manager, do you wanna go out and advertise locally, regionally, state, nationally? What's your thoughts?
I think it's important that we cast a large enough net that we find a viable enough candidate pool, but, I think it's critical that, a person that, is going to fill the position would really be, have a vested interest in this, region, so I think the more regionally local we can say, the better. That's my feeling.
So which you said broader net and then.
Well, we need to ensure we can capture a large enough pool of people, but if they can be from here, that'd be beneficial.
Okay,
I agree.
Rusty?
I don't think we need to go any further than statewide, but I'm not beyond just advertising this locally either.
Would you repeat yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, I don't think we need to go nationally on this, statewide, but I'm not above just advertising this locally also.
So you would prefer, I mean, it would be okay with you?
Yeah.
I think we do need to, do at least a statewide search. I think in order for it to be an open discussion, I think it should be a statewide search, at least.
Right?
Yeah, I kind of agree, locally and statewide, great.
Karen?
Well, what type of search? I don't think we've had a really good track record. I haven't been on council when we've done an executive search firm, but it seems like from our past history, that's not been very productive for us. So I would prefer an in-house search, regional for sure, statewide, maybe. I'm sorry, that doesn't help you, does it?
Well, I'm just, was gonna get a consensus, so one more, and we'll see where we ended up.
One more, I already decided to go to Emma.
Yeah.
As Karen just pointed out, and I have been here for all of the, previous city managers, starting with Mr. Jimmy, ending with Mr. Jimmy Rubio. And, I agree that our track record has not been good. It has been, disturbing, to say the least. They are expensive to conduct those national searches. We bring in the final three, we pay for the flights, we get them here, it costs us a lot of money, and then we get 19 months out of somebody. Hardly justifies the effort, in my opinion. I understand that we, based on recommendation from, what's his name,
Sam Light.
Sam Light, the wizard, told us this is what we should do. So, I think that, I'm not in support of a huge wide search based on our track record. I think there are viable alternatives to that, and I make that position, I have stated that position quite adamantly in previous discussion.
So regionally for you.
At the very least.
Like, I've been here for the last 4 years, and the last time that we went out for a national search, it cost the city $17,000, and we got 19 months out of the city manager, and I think that's probably what happened prior to that. I feel like, using our in-house resources to go out regionally would probably be the best thing to do.
Do you have consensus on that?
So I would say majority is regional.
How's regional defined?
So that would be
Right.
Trinidad, Pueblo, would be about a southern, Sunday newspaper advertising mostly, and CML, I would say, we could do CML.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe we
You're
do
gonna end up a little bit with state doing CML.
in-house. Do you have consensus on that also?
You
That
want
is,
us to just do
have
this?
city staff
Yes.
do?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry, don't mean to
All right.
interrupt your
Yeah,
conversation.
that's fine.
On item 3 of that, the job description, I think, council, have you had an opportunity to read the job description, that we had in there? Any concerns about the job description? We'll start out with Aaron, down that end, you read it?
I have read it. I've forgotten if a lot of job description will have in there any other duties additionally assigned, and
Those job descriptions that are, job duties that are in that job description just come straight out of the charter.
does it have? I've forgotten. Does it have that? Does it say any job duties additionally assigned?
They usually do, because that's the catch-all, right?
Yeah.
No, it does not have that
Under L, in the job description.
in the qualities.
Perform such other
Oh.
duties as may be prescribed by this charter, by ordinance or required by him or her, by city council, which are not inconsistent with this charter. Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Rusty?
I'm good with it.
The job description is fine.
Yeah, I kind of read through that, but I might have missed it. Do we have something about residents that have to live in this community?
No,
I didn't see it in there, but I could have missed it.
no.
That wouldn't be under job description.
Well, I think it would be because we've had
Well, I don't think you
issues.
would. No.
I'm gonna walk out of here again. I'm tired.
No, but we can certainly add it if.
Well, I think that's important. We have a city manager that lived in Denver and travel back and forth and with weather and stuff. And then we want somebody that's gonna invest in the community too and have something here that'll keep him here. So I think that might be something we wanna add to that.
I agree with that.
Karen?
No, nothing.
You did?
No. I don't have anything, I just like the fact that you brought up about them having to have residents here. Okay?
Just to clarify, an applicant, does the applicant have to have
No,
residence?
No,
If
it's,
you
okay.
come on, if you
We
get
just
the
have to
job.
agree to
Yeah,
move.
yeah,
Okay.
The contingency of employment
Okay.
is that you live in the city.
I just wanted
There'd
to-
be a window.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
A big
But
one.
we ain't one, man.
Yes, sir. Day one.
Okay, item 4, deadline, for
Are we
application.
gonna talk about salary?
No,
Okay, are we going to talk
that
about
would
that?
be,
I think that's a matter that we need to negotiate with the applicant or the candidate,
What
rather
about,
than discuss here.
what about a
For the
salary
range?
range?
A range, perhaps not a bad idea.
Hard to advertise.
About a range.
I would say not to my personal, not to exceed what we're doing right now.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Right now, or a previous city manager?
Well, right now, I think, what's it listed at?
They're right close together.
Are they? Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which is the highest?
Previous.
Right.
I can't read, oh, wait,
Okay, well, I'm thinking.
the
this
previous
what
one
I-
was slightly higher.
I think that that's something that we need to, if we're gonna set definitive parameters, that one they're probably gonna put,
Yes.
in my opinion.
And it
Because
may be
that was
something,
the job rate.
right, it may be something that has to be discussed later down the line,
Very
because
good.
we are under pretty much a lot of other communities, even regionally, so, just so you know. Okay, then, the deadlines. If we start, we can start tomorrow advertising. If we go 2 weeks, advertise out and end on March 18th. And even 3 weeks out, ending on March 25th, we could probably look at having, interviews for the second week of April then.
So second week of April. Did you say 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Well, she said.
Well, either one, so, we
that's
need
what I
to
meant, yeah,
decide,
so
yeah,
we have
which
to
one,
decide
and
on
we can
which one
probably
we want,
squeeze,
right.
especially if we pick the 2 week, we can fit it in council meetings in such a way that you guys, you know, we have to list, we have to, take all of our people that we get, you guys have to pick whatever you decide, the top 5, the top whatever your parameter is, those have to be advertised for 14 days. The finalists have to be advertised for 14 days. Within there, you can be interviewing, but they still have to, you cannot make an offer of employment prior to that, those 14 days being up. So, if we start right away and especially if we go with 2 weeks and where the council meetings fall, we should be able to have interviews, by the second week of April for sure. Which is pretty quick.
Okay, any questions on her recommendations, Mr. Matei?
No.
Sure.
No, we're going with 2 weeks.
2
right?
weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any reason that it would benefit us to go 3 weeks?
You know, I think if we advertise in the papers, no, I think 2 weeks is gonna be ample time. The other thing that would factor in on that is what you guys are gonna expect from them, which is the next item. Cover letter, resume, and application. And if you want them to do a presentation, sometimes, you know, obviously at executive administrative positions, they're tasked with the, chore of coming in with a presentation. We would have to pick the topic, they would have to come in and give a presentation. 5-minute presentation on, you know, how to improve the economic base in Trinidad, or what proposal do you have to bring more, to raise the economic base in Trinidad, that type of thing, so.
So would that be done pretty much in the interview?
Yes, but that's what I'm saying, that they would have to bring that forward,
Okay.
so.
That would be after we weeded out to what the amount of the people that we wanted to interview, right?
Right.
So that's.
But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that has to be part of that has to be part of the advertisement. So you're telling them, we need a letter, a cover letter, a resume, an application, and a presentation. You know, it's 2 weeks isn't a lot of time, I guess,
Right.
and then they're gonna have to be prepared for an interview following shortly after, so that's all I'm saying, is that would be the difference.
I think 2 weeks sounds too brief, and 3 still seems short to me, but it's better than 2.
Okay.
So, I think that is a lot to ask, somebody to consider making a decision that quickly about.
Mhm. It's a lot.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll have to make sure when we vote.
Aaron?
Are we still discussing the
The deadline.
I understand we are, we'd like to expedite that process. However, I just really feel that 2 weeks is not enough time. I mean, my suggestion would be 4, just given the gravity of the position and the, expectations that I would presume we would have for the applicants. I mean, it's a serious undertaking to apply for that type of job. That'd be my view.
You know, I think 2 weeks is not a bad time frame, and the reason being is that most of the time, people that are looking, I mean, they're already looking for a job anyhow. And if we're gonna be advertising for continuously for however many days it goes in, it gives them ample time to see that time frame.
I did have a question that may have bearing on this. You mentioned newspapers, is that the sole means that we would be
See,
using?
regionally it's tough because what else do you do regionally? I mean, there's social media,
I
you know,
don't have
website and
any
that, but,
expertise.
it's definitely, you know, regionally it's difficult because I think at the very least you have to go to CML, and once you go to CML, you're pretty much gonna be statewide.
I
Honestly.
think that, aren't we asking that she can go to CML?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was,
Okay.
that's what I took
And like I
from
said, I
it.
go back
So it's
to-
really gonna be more than just.
And I go back to
regionally.
saying that, you know, people that are wanting to change positions, they've already got that in the back of their mind. And they probably already, if they're of that magnitude of having all of their credentials or whatever that are required and what we're looking for, they already have that stuff in front of them.
Yeah.
So they should be able to, they might just have to doctor it up to turn it.
Okay, so I'm not sure where we are on the consensus of time. I had Rusty 3 and Aaron 3 and Aaron 3 at least, or 4. Mayor 2, and what was this side?
2.
2.
Can we compromise at
Okay.
3?
So we have
Given, given
four
Mayor
twos and
Rico's,
3 threes.
points, I can see that a shorter time would be acceptable. I mean, if they're a serious candidate, they'll have stuff prepared, I'm comfortable with a shorter period.
You know, honestly, we can always, if we don't get applicants, we can always extend.
Right? Right. Sure.
Just for 2 weeks. We can do that.
So we're gonna go on a 2-week
Okay.
timeframe?
Okay.
Starting tomorrow? Starting tomorrow. And you're gonna put it on social media as well, or? Okay, item 5, requirements for applicants, what do you have?
So the selection procedures was there really just kind of to let you guys know what's gonna happen. If you've decided to do this in-house without going to an executive firm,